Learn how to turn your adversity into triumph this week on the Fixed Ops Mastermind podcast. Two words ring true for all of us in the automotive service space: the phones. When we hear those words, instantly we all sigh. Because as much change as our industry has seen, we still get an overwhelming amount of calls. No need to sigh, though. That's where a good BDC comes in handy, doesn't it? I know the team at Traver Connect personally, and these guys get it. And they can help you build your service BDC. Or you can use their team to catch the calls you miss from their well-trained team of agents, or have them make outbound calls and set new appointments. Give Traver Connect a call today. As they say, revenue doesn't leave a message at the beep. TraverConnect.com. Dynatron Software is the premier provider of automotive fixed operations, data analytics, business intelligence, and pricing optimization. We are changing the way that automotive dealerships look at their service department profitability and revenue streams. We are laser focused on profit management for fixed operations and uncovering hidden opportunities for our clients. DynatronSoftware.com. F&I Direct is a company comprised of experts on F&I, reinsurance, digital showroom workflows, and much more. They help fix and improve your processes and guarantee results. If you're interested in finding out how you can increase your profit on every unit sold without giving up any of the money you're already making, visit GuaranteedDealerProfits.com. Again, that's GuaranteedDealerProfits.com. You can schedule a free strategy call and start becoming more profitable this month. So don't wait. All right, welcome back, everybody, to another session of the Fixed Ops Mastermind podcast. We are excited to have with us today Marcus Aurelius Anderson. For those that don't know who you are, Marcus, should give them a little background of where you came from.
First of all, Dave, thank you for having me, and I'm excited to be here. This has been a long time coming. For those that don't know me, I'm a leadership and mindset coach to high achievers, leaders, entrepreneurs, CEOs, warriors, the creator of the best-selling book, The Gift of Adversity, TEDx speaker, The Gift of Adversity. So if you want to know more about my story, you can find that on YouTube for free. But just a little background about me. The big story that most people kind of focus on is in 2012, when I was preparing to deploy with the Light Infantry, I suffered a severe injury on my neck. It was a spinal injury that actually left me paralyzed from the neck down. So at 40 years old, it forced me to really reevaluate my life and take a look at what was going on with that. And that was the beginning of me really diving into myself to learn what true knowledge is and what true leadership is for what has to be done for the rest of my life.
Yeah, and that certainly is a life-altering accident that happened to you, and there's a couple ways that can go, right? When that happens to someone, they can take that as the woe is me path, and go that way with it, or they can take the path that you said, which is this isn't woe is me. I want to know why this happened and how this can make me better, and you know, obviously your book was born from that, and the great success that you have built from understanding what adversity can do for you has come from.
Absolutely. And I'd like to say that there was absolutely, for a while there was a woe of me component. You know, there was a part of me that was like, hey, I'm a good person. Why did this happen to me? You know, I don't deserve this. And what happens is, if we're not careful, we stay in that place and we become a victim. Mm-hmm. And the problem is, once we become a victim, sometimes if we identify as that all the time, then that puts us in a place where we no longer want to take accountability or responsibility. And now the rest of our life is just a sad song. and you get to a place where I'm either going to be like this and play a victim for the rest of my life, or I'm going to do whatever I can. And when you take action, it's amazing what happens if you commit 100%.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, that's what's happened a lot in this society over the last few years, right? Is the victimization mentality that has taken over, where somehow it's become for some a badge of honor to be a victim of something, and as opposed to turning it around and saying, I'm not going to be a victim. I'm gonna overcome this, and I'm going to get by this.
That's it. And that's what adversity does. It actually forces you to take a good hard look at what's going on. It makes you ask the question, everybody thinks, adversity is going to make me stronger, and it will. But what it forces you to do is it forces you to look at what you're doing. And instead of saying, can I get through this? Adversity forces you to say, actually, am I doing this for the right reason? Mm-hmm. Am I doing this for my team? Am I doing this for my company? Am I doing this for my family? Am I doing this for myself? And if we can put all those things together and they all align, then you will find that there is many more levels that you can go. But if you're not certain, that's why you're pulling back.
Yeah. And I think that's a great sentence that you just put together there. And that is what is the reason that I'm doing this? I think that's something that probably people don't spend enough time delving into their own minds to find out what their reason is for doing anything, whether it's the career that they chose or the life that they're choosing to live or not live, and what is the reason that's driving that, so that you can, if it's something that you truly wish to change, that you can start to affect change on that.
That's absolutely it. And again, even in leadership, even in sales, no matter what it is, you have to sit down almost with a piece of paper and ask yourself, what am I trying to accomplish? And then let's say, okay, what would accomplishing that do for me? What would it give me? Mm-hmm. And then what happens is then you have to ask yourself, will I ever know if I've accomplished this thing? Is there a metric? Is there a timeline? Is there a deadline? And if there's not, then you understand that you're kind of sucker punching yourself. Right. And if your drive is only to do more, of course we want to drive to do more. I mean, you saw me on the 4x4x48 this last weekend where I'm running 48 miles in 48 hours. Mm-hmm. It was to push to do more, but yet that was driven by the why, which is to stop child sex trafficking and human trafficking, but also about understanding self-knowledge. Why do I want to lead? Why do I need to do this thing? Why am I putting myself in this position to try to get other people to take action? Mm-hmm. And that's, again, that all comes down to these questions. If you don't know who you are, if you don't know who you are, the why that you create will always be artificial and conflated, and you'll never get there.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And there's just not enough time put into that why. And so let me bring this into the automotive space for a minute. There are a lot of people that get to the leadership side of fixed operations, and maybe they don't really have a good why as to why they got there, other than at some point they wanted to be the boss, right? They
did their time. They did their time. Get me in there. Yeah,
exactly. And of course everybody's looking, saying, well, the boss just sits in there and we do all the work, and he doesn't have to do any of the work. Not realizing what is actually going on and what it takes. You may not be pushing paper like everybody else, but there's a lot of work that goes into creating that team and keeping that team together. And there's just not enough that's put into them. Even as themselves, never mind whether they got training or not, but not enough time from themselves to put into to say, what type of leader do I want to be? Do I want to be a leader? Do I just want to be the boss, or do I actually want to be a leader? Because there is a giant canyon between those two of boss or leader.
That's absolutely it. And you have to understand that each of us has a leadership style or a leadership voice that we're accustomed to, whether it be because that's what everybody else has done in the culture. So for example, in the military, especially in the infantry, most guys have a very adversarial, face in your hand, let's do this, which is fine. But that may not necessarily be what your team needs. Mm-hmm. That may not be, or here's a good example. When I'm talking to leaders, when I'm talking to CEOs, Some of them had that very aggressive, I want to make this happen kind of feel. But if you have 30 people on your team, maybe 15 people on that team feel the same way. They're like, yeah, we're going to go crush this. And the other 15 are like, but he hasn't really given me any specifics or like parameters or even metrics on ways to measure this. So how am I supposed to go crush it? It seems a little bit convoluted. And if that's the case, unfortunately, whether you meant to or not, you divided your team. Now 15 of them are on your side. The other 15 that aren't really sure, now it feels like they're divided. And now instead of going towards this common goal, which is to take this company, this sales, this everything to a higher level, that's been completely just thrown to the side. And now you have people that feel like they're competing unnecessarily against one another when they should be competing on what they're capable of. And so that's why the leadership is so important. And then this is where you also have to put in the other aspects. So in those two examples, if I'm a very aggressive go-getter, that's fine. But I have to be able to read the room and see that these other 15 people may not resonate with them. So I have to be able to speak their language. So now if I'm a leader and I'm like, listen, guys, everyone here, you were integral to everything that we've done. This is what we've done up to this quarter. I'm so thankful for everyone because every one of you are so important. So now I've made all these people on the other side feel valued, feel heard, feel like they're part of the team. And then I close with, and guess what? So I'm challenging you by the end of this quarter that we're going to get to this place. And now you fire them up. And now we're all on the same team. And now we have this vision and we know exactly where we're going and why we're going there. And now we can get behind that. And now when you go back into the office, they don't think that you're just kicking your feet up on the table and sitting back and taking it easy. And that's the goal. That's what a leader does. If you're not leading by example, you're not really leading. You're just setting a bad example. Right. And people forget that as a leader, here's what happens as a leader. If I'm a leader and I'm killing it 364 days a year, and there's one day when I feel sick and I put my feet up and one employee sees me do that, they will never forget that. And that to them will be the highest that their standard ever is. So my 75% when I'm sick is going to be their 100%, and they're never going to click above that because they're like, well, I went in there, I saw Marcus with his feet kicked up. Right. You don't know that Marcus is sick or didn't get any sleep or whatever it is. So we have to understand that we are always setting an example. You have to decide as a leader, what example are you going to set? Yeah.
The speed of the team is the speed of the leader, right?
They dictate the pace. Exactly.
So, couple of things to unpack in there that you said. The point that you made about communicating with some of the people are the in your face type, and some are kind of sitting back, and I want to know exactly what is point A, B, and C that we're supposed to get to. What is the number that I'm supposed to hit? Those people that need that definite goal that they are looking to get to support your mission. You need to be able to communicate in those different styles. And that was only 2 different styles that you gave there. Typically an organization has many different communication styles. And it's not just telling them things or showing them things or coaching them through things. You need to know that what you said was what they heard. Right? You need to understand that they actually heard what you said.
That's it. And it's different than, like you said, just disseminating information doesn't really help them. You could do that in an email. What you have to do is you have to get a read back. You have to say, does that make sense? Are there any questions? And a lot of people are not going to raise their hand to ask questions because they want to be done. Yep. But now if you go through and you say, John, did that make sense to you? What is your role in this? And now if John is the aggressive guy, and then you have Michael over here who's trying to figure it out. Michael, do you understand? Do you understand how you and John are going to work together on this? Now we've put it all together. Now we see that we're a team, that we're not opposed to each other. And here's the other thing. I talked about 2 different styles of leadership in that communication, but I have to have multiple different styles. I have to have 5 or 6 because even the kind of style that works for one person for a little bit, there will come a time when maybe that doesn't work. And if I'm not smart enough to read the room and see that, then I'm just talking, it's the definition of insanity. I'm doing the same thing over and over again. Right. And now if I can have a little bit of pragmatic empathy and just say, what's going on? Dave, is there something going on at home? what's going on with this. And now just by having that small amount of reach, just talking to them real man to man for a minute, that helps them see that you care more about them than just this idea of, I want you to be a driver, I want you to produce. That's fine. But those things all come from the other stuff. If you're a leader and you don't know who the most important people are in your team, and who their most important people are in their lives, you're doing it wrong. If you don't know what at least 3 of those people on every one of your team's goals are, if you don't know what their driver is, here's what happens. You have a new person that comes in and you talk to them and you see if they're a good fit. You talk about the culture, you talk about the ethos, you talk about everything that you have with your core values. Then you find out, what would you like to do? Where would you like to be in a year, 3 years, 5 years? And now once you find out what those things are, now you have these 3 things these are sort of, they're pit stops. They show them where they want to go. So now when that person may not be doing what they need to do, or they're not doing it efficiently, now you can come back and leverage those to help them elevate themselves and say, oh, yeah, actually, I did say that I wanted to do that. Well, you said that 6 months ago, and we're almost at this year mark. Where are you at? Are you close? I mean, the metrics don't tell us that you are. And now you help them see. And it's not like we're using it against them. We're just showing them, this is what you claimed that you wanted. And there's a big difference between having things that you say that you want to do and things that you're working towards. And sometimes that's all you need to do to get the team back on track.
Yeah. I mean, that is a great point. You need to know your team more than just at that level of work. Right. You've got to know what drives them in their lives. In my coaching program that's called Vision and Values, that's the first thing that we talk about, is that you've got to have a massive vision for the company so that it's so big that the rest of everybody else's vision that works there can fit inside it. So they understand that whatever it is that they want, they want to have a boat, they want to have a Mustang as their summer car, whatever it is, you need to know what their vision of their life is, so that you know how to approach them to keep them to be driven to want to achieve those things.
That's absolutely it. And then some people may be listening to this and say, well, that sounds cheesy, or that sounds woo-woo. It's not. If I know that your birthday is coming up and I know that you love 65 Mustangs, and we get you a birthday cake in your favorite color of Mustang, that's got a little bit more gravity to it, right?
Absolutely.
Or if we get you a picture of it or a vision, whatever it is, the idea is to give those people just that little extra. And the thing too is, with leadership, we have to have all these different styles and all this huge multiple levels of understanding, because what works with somebody today may not work tomorrow. Leadership of men and women are difficult because people are difficult. And our days change. I mean, what worked an hour ago may not work right now. So I have to be able to see all that. I have to be able to feel it. I had to be able to be connected to all of it, so that as I read the room and I can tell that this person may or may not be paying attention, or this person may not be really resonating with what I'm talking about, that's fine. Now I can hone in. And if I have these other leadership capacities and languages, I can speak in a language in which they learn, in which they understand, they read it back to me. And now we are all on the same page, mission driven, laser focused, and we get to that next place.
Absolutely. And so you said the 2 words that I always say are so foreign in the automotive industry, and that's woo woo. The people get all they get standoffish about that kind of stuff. But one of the biggest things that you need to start with anybody is getting their mindset right. And knowing that their mind is in the right place, that their mind is open to be able to accept these ideas, that the ideas that you are going to present to them, that they're open to the fact that maybe doing something differently is a better way to do it, or at least worth a try. So what is it that you start with your clients on mindset? Because you're dealing with some high performing people already. So you would kind of expect that their mindset is probably pretty good already.
It's interesting. I mean, and they are high performers, but each person is an individual and each person is unique. So as you were saying before, maybe as a CEO, that skill set That may work in my company, but there are other skill sets. So if I'm used to delegating everything, that's great. But if I go home and the kids are going crazy and I tell my wife, hey, can you go do that? That may not be the skill set that I need in that moment, right?
Right.
So it's about what's the mission, what's the purpose, why am I doing what I'm doing? And what you'll find is that if you can get a better skill set and a better ability to read your family, your loved ones, somebody that's close to you, it allows you to better read the people that are on your team. It allows you to better understand what's going on. I call it pragmatic empathy because you have to understand what this person's feeling, not necessarily because you want to give them a hug
Right.
and sing Kumbaya, but so you can at least understand, what are they pushing back against? Why are they resisting this so much? Do they feel like they weren't validated? Do they feel like they weren't listened to? Do they feel like all their work is not being appreciated? And these things are very simple, but something as simple as acknowledging somebody's work. It doesn't have to be in front of a bunch of people, or maybe it does. But the idea is when you do that and you validate what they're doing, that encourages that behavior.
Right.
So understanding exactly what's going on with those people. And again, that leadership style, some people are direct. To you and I, that may be fine. To other people, direct seems rude.
Yes.
And they want to have you walk them down the garden path. So again, we have to put all those things together. The most important thing is for that person, when I start with them with mindset, is to figure out what is it that they really want? Not what is it that they claim that they want, not what is it that everybody else thinks that they want, or what they think that they should have. They may just want success in this business because they've had no success in any other area of their life. And if that's the case, then of course they're going to be driven.
Right.
But now we have to say, okay, what else is going on there? Where else are we going? Even if we are successful, because here's the beauty of it. People are afraid that if I'm driven and that gives me an edge, that if I somehow start to work on these other areas of my life, because I'm driven by anxiety, for example, and entrepreneurship or being a leader, that actually, it makes us better. It makes us perform higher, but it's corrosive. It's not sustainable. We burn out. So what we have to do is we have to help those other people understand that, listen, if we can talk about these other things and bring up these other areas that are lacking, it's not going to make you lose your edge. If anything, it's going to actually make you elevate all these things exponentially, because that is the tide that rises all boats. And that's where I began to figure out where their weaknesses are, where they're BSing themselves, where they're not pushing themselves, and where they think they're pushing themselves, but they're really not applying the way they should be.
Right. So do you find that people BSing themselves is something that's pretty prevalent?
Yeah, I do it. I did it until this, even physically, running 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours straight. That was a big gut check for me. You're getting very little sleep, and I'm the gift of adversity guy, right? I'm the guy that's like, you need to lean into it. And I was leaning into it, and I still was having a hard time. And it made me realize that the place where we BS ourselves is this: the wisdom and the experience and the knowledge that you so desperately seek is found in the adversity that you're right now avoiding.
Wow. So
if your hardest part in your business is sales, chances are you're not really applying yourself in those sales. And because you're pushing away from it and you're holding yourself back, you're not applying all the energy that you should be into that. But guess what? If you would go in there and make that call and send that email and make that contact, now that gets you one step closer to what you should be doing. If it's a relationship, whether it be with a coworker or even with yourself, and you're afraid to have that conversation, now that festers, it never gets better. Everything that you talk about from there on out is going to be superficial. It's not going to be deep. And it's not going to be that thing that allows you to help that person or drive that person, or at least be able to even feel what that person is going through when you're trying to get in a teamwork situation and help them go to the next level. Those are some of the big ones to get started with. And even woo-woo, right? Like if I'm working in a factory and I replace the word love with trust, it makes a lot of sense, right? There's a bunch of heavy machinery around me, right? I have to assume the guy behind me is not going to hit me in the back of the head with a crane when he's trying to pick up this rebar, right? I have to assume that.
Yes.
And because I love him enough and trust him enough, I'm not going to always watch my back. Now, if it's the new guy, what is everybody doing?
turning around.
They're checking their six, right? And it's
Right.
not mean, but it helps him understand that as now after a few months, now I don't have to do that. And what has that done? That makes him feel respected.
Yeah.
That makes him feel that I trust him, which again, all these things come down to that love component.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that. One of the things that I do with my teams on any team that I'm leading is empowerment, which may be an overused word, but there are a lot of places in the automotive industry where there are a lot of things that service advisors are not allowed to do. They've got to go to the manager or director to get approval to do it. And I open that up for my advisors to be able to do. Now, obviously, that comes with the coaching and the teaching on when the right time to do it is, when we would be expected to do it. But they know and understand that they're not going to get blown up if they do it, and I disagreed with what they did. We'll have the conversation of, this is how I would have handled that. But as long as in the moment they did the right thing to take care of a customer, or what they viewed was the right thing to take care of a customer, then that's fine. Then we if it should have been different, then we have a coaching moment and they know to go forward. But it's when would they ever have the attempt to do that if every time something needed to be done, they had to come and get me? Right? I'm not being a leader at that point. That's instead of empowering, I'm now just the I was going to say enabler, but I don't even think that's the right word. But it's I'm enabling them not to grow is what I'm enabling them not to do, because I'm not allowing them to take any risk or take any chances and learn how to do things differently.
And if you gave them that potential, like you said, and you took that artificial ceiling off of it, it would force them to take additional steps in the future, so that now they can anticipate this. And again, in any company, this comes down to core values. This comes down to the culture. If we have 6 core values that say, we put the client first, we go above and beyond, we're honest, we're resolute, those are the things that they should be going to, as opposed to asking you. And here's the other thing. If you were a person who is constantly like the bottleneck, that means you're irreplaceable,
right? Which
for some people, they enjoy that. But I want to let you know that if you were irreplaceable, then that means you are unpromotable.
Right.
Right. So now you're painting yourself into a corner, and yeah, that may make you feel good or valuable, but in the end, are you really?
Yeah.
Are you doing this for your ego? Are you doing this so that everybody wants to come to you?
Right.
And you get to complain about, this place would shut down without me. Yeah. I think the place was going before you got there, and it's going to go after you.
Absolutely.
So what you decide to do with that. And again, if you're leading by that example and giving them that permission, now you show them that you trust them.
Yep.
And now that leads everywhere else. And truly, the client can even feel that. They don't even know why, but they can feel it all the way through in the end product of the service.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I always want to stop. I don't want to have to have one of my advisors who has now been taking care of this client for all day, or maybe it's multiple days, depending on what the repairs are. The client potentially spending thousands of dollars with them, and then they go, do you think you can get me an extra $15 off? And they're like, I got to go ask my manager. Like what I don't see the purpose in that. That to me only broke down that relationship that advisor worked very hard to build with that customer.
Absolutely. You should give them at least a $100 or $200 buffer to allow them to use it at their own volition.
Right. Exactly. And so you mentioned somebody becoming a bottleneck. I always say that my team is like a funnel. Like we're a funnel, and everything needs to be able to flow through. And I don't ever want to be that small part of the funnel. I don't want to be the part that's restricting some of that flow. And that's the reason that I give them that additional empowerment to do discounts, to put something to service policy, to take care of a customer if that's the right thing to do. But because you shouldn't have to continually have them coming to ask you things for things like that. That you need to trust them enough. And I like the fact that you put the bottleneck as that you're now unpromotable. So you're at the same time that you're holding people down because you may feel threatened by them coming up, you're also holding yourself back. I like that imagery. And
it's all the truth. And like you said, in the military, they call it decentralized command. It's like, as opposed to having one big team, I have 6 small teams. And now they all are operating within the same confines. They all know what to do. They all have the same standard operating procedures.
Yeah.
Jocko Willink talks about it, you
Yeah.
know, in all of his material, and it's very true.
Yeah.
So like you said, if we had a bunch of small teams that thought the same way with no bottlenecks,
Right.
yeah, we're going to get a lot more done, and we're going to cover a lot more ground, and we're going to win. We're going to beat the enemy.
Awesome. All right, Marcus, this was a great conversation, and I really, really appreciate you coming and spending some time with us. I know the listeners are going to find some gold in there, in those things that you said. And thank you for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you for having me. And if I can leave you with one last leadership quote, I tell all my people, if you're leading people, don't try to be one too many. Try to be one to many. Don't try to get in everybody else's way, right? Just try to allow them to have the ability, give them that freedom, give them that knowledge, and then trust your team, because if you don't trust them, you shouldn't have hired them in the first place.
Exactly. Absolutely. So where can people find you and learn more about you?
Absolutely. They can find me on LinkedIn, Marcus Aurelius Anderson, Instagram, Marcus Aurelius Anderson, Twitter, Facebook. They can go to marcusaureliusanderson.com. That's the book.
Okay.
My podcast is called Acta, Verba. It's Latin for deeds, not words. And if you want to know more about me, you can check out my TEDx. It's free. If you're into reading, the book is out there, The Gift of Adversity, Overcoming Paralysis and Pain to Find Purpose. And I talk about leadership. I talk about my injury and what it taught me. And hopefully, if you even take an iota of that, it can affect your life too, without having to go through what I went through in the process.
Absolutely. Good stuff. All right. Again, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Take care. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Fixed Ops Mastermind podcast. That was a superstar guest right there, folks. Go out and find out more information about him. He can help change your life. Remember to share this podcast with your friends. Subscribe to the podcast. Help us to grow. Until next time.